Good afternoon, and welcome to K2's Road to Excellence with Excel Series Part 9 and our good friend Adagio. This is Alan Salmon, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to our last mini webinar in May. As usual, my good friend Marilyn Benninger is backing me up today. She is your go-to person for any problems and to deal with questions. Now, your microphones are muted and only presenters can use them for obvious reasons. In terms of notes, you're welcome to make notes, but within 10 days of today, you're going to receive a package. And in that package will be my extensive teaching notes and the teaching files that I use today. And if you pose questions in the chat window, and we encourage you to do that, when you get your package, all of you will get the list of all questions asked and the answers to the questions. In addition, in the package, 4 times today, Marilyn is going to stop Warren and myself and put up a polling question. These are multiple choice questions with usually 4 possible answers. You don't need to get the answer right. You need to select an answer so you're digitally recorded as being present. If you get 75% of the polling questions recorded, you will get 1 hour of verifiable CPDs. And if you don't, you'll get 1 hour of non-verifiable CDs. So where are we going today? This is part 2 of 3 parts on Excel functions. And to get us started, Marilyn, can you post the first polling question, please?
With pleasure, Alan. Good morning, everyone. I'm launching the first poll. You should see a blue screen. And we're asking the question if you have ever used equals sum if or equals sum ifs. And select one of those below. I'm not going to read them out to you. They're fairly obvious. We keep our polls open until we have at least 90% participation, and we're just about there. So I'll be counting you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thanks, everyone. I'm closing the poll now and sharing the results with you, Alan.
Good. Well, for those 44% of you that have used sum if S is relatively new. I think it came in 2010, that takes sum if to a new level, and I'll get into that about 20 minutes into my presentation. So let's get started. And the first thing I want to deal with is Vlookups. Hugely useful in a lot of cases. So what you've got in front of you is 3 columns of data: code, product, and price. And then over in column F, I want to insert the code that I want to look up. And then in F2, I want it to return, in this case, $49.95. So how do we do that? Well, at first blush, it's pretty simple. The function is equal VLOOKUP. What do I want to look up? What's in F1, comma, where do I want to look it up? There. And when I get the results, I'm going to change this to B14. There we go. I get $49.95. So again, look up F1 in the range and then get the answer when you find the right row in the 3rd column. So Excel works like this: no, no, yes, column 1, 2, and 3. So you're probably saying, what happens if the value that I want to look up isn't there? That's going to give you, some of you who haven't worked with VLOOKUPs before, a strange result. So notice I'm typing in A28. Well, that's weird. I'm showing a price of A28 as being the price for the desk, A27. And that's because this, there are two kinds of lookups. And in this case, it's an inexact lookup. So you'll notice that the codes in column A are sorted from the smallest to the largest, which is mandatory with an inexact lookup. And with an inexact lookup, if it doesn't find it, it goes back to the previous one. So it goes over here and says A23, nope. A27, nope. A28, nope. And it reverts back to A27. And there are times when that's useful, but usually we want an exact lookup. So just let me unhide these cells. And we have exactly the same thing. So I'm looking up A23, and there it is. But now let's put in A27. And we're going to get an entirely different result. Well, I meant to make that A28, so I apologize. There we go. So with an exact lookup, if it can't find it, we get the pound n/a. However, one of the advantages of an exact lookup is notice that the codes are not sorted alphabetically. So what's making this happen? One small addition. So we're still saying lookup F7, A28, in the range A8 to C11, get the answer in the third column. That's exactly what we did before, but notice now that I have after the 3, after the column, a comma 0 or true. And that says to Excel, if you can't find the code, then put in the pound NA. And again, that's covered in the little handout that I've got for you. And shortly, I don't know about you, but I really don't want pound n/a in my documents. I'll show you an elegant solution to get rid of that. Now let's up the ante when it comes to lookups with this example. And what you're looking at here is a sales quote form. I'm sitting with a potential customer. They want a price on the item number. They want 50. The unit is each. And I want the name of the product. And I'm going to use a Vlookup for that. And the unit price and the extended unit price. Well, let's look at the easy one first. But before I do that, I need to show you something. And this is my data table. And let's look at row 7 first. So I'm tracking the item, the unit, description, and then the price breaks. So from 1 to 9, it's this, 10 to 24, it's this, and so on. And the table that I'm going to look up is in red. Now, Vlookups always look for the correct item or correct value going down in a column. There is another type of lookup, not used as extensively, called an Hlookup. In an Hlookup, and that's the area in green here, and it's called htable, I'm looking up the values going across, and then I'm getting the answer there. So if the quantity break or ordered is 50, then I get the answer in row 7. And then here I elegantly put it together with a Vlookup and an Hlookup inside it. So let's take this piece apart. The first thing I need to know is what is the unit price column. So I'm going to use an Hlookup to get that. So I'm going to look up B6, which is that, in the H table and get the answer in the second row. Let's go back to here. So it goes here and it gets the quantity, and the quantity is 50. So it goes across here and it gets the answer 7. So that Hlookup here now gets, as it does its calculation, it says that should be 7. And now it's a simple VLOOKUP. Look up the value of V6 in VTable and get the answer in the seventh column. Bingo. 1, 2, 3, 7, $6.64. Now that's taking it to a new level. And once again, you're never going to remember how to do that, but you've got a good explanation in the manual, and you have this actual teaching file so that you can go back and look at it. Continuing in the VLOOKUP area, let's deal now with that stupid error message. And let's go here and let's look at it. So this is the very basic VLOOKUP. Look up the value of C7, which is C001, and get the answer in the third column, which is $6.99. Let's look at price. Look up C5, which is the quantity, and get the answer in the fourth column, 1, 2, 3, 4. Quantity on hand. Get the answer in the fifth column. So we can use the same table to give us different results. Okay, what happens if I change this to C005? There isn't one. So not surprisingly, I get that. Now, I've got it also here, and I'm going to change it to 5, and I get a very different response. So instead of the error message, I get item not found. So what's the magic in that? Well, the magic is an if statement using a special subset of an if statement called if error. So what I'm saying here is if I get an error when I look up C5 in the range B13 to F25 in the third column, print item not found. Now, if I don't get an error, then show the response. Making sense? So let's change this to one that's there, 3. And there we go. So there's a very elegant way of getting rid of that stupid error message. Okay. Now I asked all of you whether you had used SUMIF and SUMIF-S. So it's now time. Whoops. I'm ahead of myself. I want to show you an if statement, and then we've already talked about what it is. So if statements contain the following 3 components. I want to do a test on something. If it's true, I want to do something. else if it's false, I want to do something. So this looks complicated. It really isn't. So I'm saying there, if C7 is not equal to, is greater or less than 0, and then take D7 minus C7 and divide it by C7. So that's the true statement. If it isn't true, then comma, quote, quote, which means if it's false. So if it is 0, then print what's between the quotes, which is a blank. So I'm going to copy that formula down, and of course it's going to change as it goes, which is what we want. Now I could do it this way. That's too much work. So I wonder how many of you know this secret. When we select a cell, you all know that in the bottom right-hand corner, we get a black square. And if we touch that black square, we get a plus sign. And if I double click, I'm done. Now here's where the if statement comes into play. I don't have a value here, it's actually 0. So you notice it's blank. If C13 is greater or equal to 0, then do the calculation. If not, which is what it is, then print the quote. Now moving on, that's valid for a single if statement, but what if we want to say if this is true and this is true, then do something? Well, we use the AND function in conjunction with an if statement, and when you look at what I've got here, you're going to think this is really, really weird. Okay? So here's the if statement. I go equal if bracket and then the ABS there says make the number absolute, delete the sign. So we're saying if E7 is greater than 0.05, comma, which stands for and, F7 is greater than 1,000, then print true, else print a blank. Dead silence. So what's weird about it is that Excel puts the and before the if statement instead of saying if E7 and F7. Does it work? Well, let's change this to 4,000 and see what we get. And you notice we get a blank. And then very quickly, there is another, there is another function called OR. So in this case, what I've got here is this. Again, I start, I better get to the right place. I start if, this time I started with OR. So if E7 is greater than 0.05 or F7 is greater than 1,000, it's true, or print it. And that can get truly complicated, so that's enough of that. Now we'll get to sum if. So here's the deal. In column A, B, C, and D, I have a data set. I have dates, regions, product line, and amounts. And I'll tell you without going down, I've got about 60 rows of data. And here's the challenge. I want to know what the total is for any item in the Northeast, for all items in the Northeast region. Now, one of the logical ways to do this, of course, is to sort it and do a subtotal. But again, that's way too much work. So for eons, we've been able to do a sum if, and I have that here. And if your eyesight is really good, before the equal sign, I have an apostrophe there. And the reason for that is if I didn't have it there, it would give me the answer. So I want it big enough so I can explain it, so I make it text. So what is this saying? Add up all the numbers. If B7 to B42, where B7 to B42, the region, is equal to F8, which is northeast. And add up all the answers in D7. Okay. So if we take that apostrophe off by doing a delete, we'll get all of the answers. So the total amount of all rows where the region is northeast is $6,002.02. Down here, I have lotions. This time, the if statement, sum if, says, if C7 to D42 is equal to F14, which is lotions, then add up all the numbers. And there we go. Now along came Excel 2010, and Excel introduced a new function called SUMIFS. Why? Because this only works with one variable, in this case, northeast. And before Excel 2010, if I wanted to do an AND, so give me the sum of all northeast and creams, I had to do a nested if statement, and that was painful. Along came SUMIFS. And again, I've got it as a text right here. Now to confuse us, Excel changed the way the formula or the function is laid out. With SUMIF, you do the test on whatever column you want to do, and then at the end, you get the answer. With SUMIFS, you first of all define the column. So let's look at this. Equals SUMIFS. D7 to D42 is where I'm going to get the stuff to add. And then a comma, and then I tell it what column to test. So if B7 to B42 is equal to F21, which is northeast, and C7 to C42 is equal to G20, which is lotions, then add them. So we take this off. And I just did two ands. I could do as many as I wanted to because I just have to add at the end, and this column is equal to this. So for those of you who are using SUMIF, I suspect you will find SUMIFS when you get your head around it. And again, I refer you to the notes. Will be kind of useful for you. Moving on to the last item that I want to deal with you, and that is subtotals. So focus on cells A, B, and C for now. Ignore D and ignore I and J. So I have a spreadsheet where I'm tracking expenses for tax department, the audit department. The chart of account codes are slightly different, but they all have 4 items. And what I want in C11 is a subtotal. And you're going to say, give me a break, Alan. It's just the sum of these. And that would do it. But I have not done that. I have used equal subtotal, a little known function in Excel. but highly useful. Ignore the 9 for now. So I'm saying do a subtotal for C5 to C10, which is exactly what you'd get if you did a sum. So what is the 9 there? Well, I suspect you've never spent much time wanting to do a subtotal that is an average of a group of cells, or a count A, but those are all doable. So that 9 is a code number that tells Excel what to do. And I've pasted in what each value is. So if you put in 1, we get the average of those, 2, the count, and so on. Notice what 9 is. It's a sum. So now we go back and we're saying, well, do a subtotal and do a sum from C5 to C10. Pretty straightforward. And then we go here, and I've done the same thing. And I suspect if I asked you to do a grand total, you would say, here, equal that plus that. And it would work. But I haven't done this. I've used the subtotal, and you're going to instantly jump on me and say, Alan, you're adding up all the numbers from C5 to C19. You're double counting because you've included the subtotal. Now, a simple check of verbal math, 12,000, 8,000, shows that the answer is right. So here's the secret. When you do a subtotal of a range that includes a subtotal, Excel ignores the subtotal functions. So in this case, it only adds that and that. And you're going to say, well, I could do the other just as fast, and you'd be absolutely right. But I want to play let's pretend. Let's pretend that we have 1,000 rows of data broken down into 10 groups or subgroups. And you do a sort by the groups. And then you go down to row 101 and you insert a row and you do a sum. And you do that for the other 9. And then you go down to the very bottom and you type in equal sum plus the first subtotal plus, 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 plus. However, if you're using the subtotal command, you are going to say equals down on row whatever, 1,000 and something, you're going to say equals subtotal 9, and you're going to do this, up 1,000 rows, and you're going to hit enter, and there's your subtotal. Okay. Now, there's 2 flavors of subtotals. I've used equal 9. In this one, I've used equal 109, and what's the difference? Well, let me hide that row, and you'll visibly on screen see the difference. Well, how about I not hide the subtotal? There we go. That's better. So take a look at C11. If your memory's good, that's the original number. Now take a look at what happens when I use 109. It's only adding the numbers on that are visible on the screen. So there are times when I want to see everything, even though I've got hidden rows, and there's times when I only want to see the visible cells. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my presentation. But before we do a hand off, I want to lead into the first seminar in May on June the 6th, our webinar. So Marilyn, we need the last poll, please.
My pleasure, Alan. Okay, folks, you should have a blue screen in front of you asking if you've ever used the Excel Consolidate tool. You have 4 choices. The first one being where I am. I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm looking forward to next month's session. You may have tried it, but you don't understand it. You may have tried using it and struggled. And some of you might be aces out there just like Alan. Lots of activity. We're already at 90%. Thanks for your participation, folks. I'm closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Closing the poll. I'm going to share those results with you now, Alan.
You know something, Marilyn? I consistently get 3% that could teach this course. I think I'm going to retire.
Please don't.
Okay.
We have so much fun.
All right, let's do the handoff.
Perfect. All right, Warren, I can see that you are on the line. I'm just going to make you the presenter.
Thank you so much. Let me just make sure we're showing the right screen. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Alan, for that wonderful information about Excel. And thank you everyone attending and taking some of your valuable time to spend with us. Hopefully you should have a screen on your desktop that says Adagio Accounting. And I just want to welcome you. My name is Warren Flett, and I'm a member of SoftTrack Systems. I'm in the training and the technical support departments. I'm also the person responsible for the YouTube videos that we do. Let me just go in here. We've been talking a little bit about Adagio throughout the series that we've been working here. And today we're going to be investigating the Adagio Financial Reporter and just a very brief introduction on what Adagio is. So for those of you who have seen the word Adagio, not sure exactly what that is, we're a module-based accounting system that is batch-oriented and integrates with a number of different other third-party verticals. It's a system where you don't have to buy all those boxes on the screen in order to do your accounting. You can just purchase and use the ones that you need. If you're a small organization that just needs to keep track of expenses and write checks or send payments, then you can just purchase those things and do your financial statements. Or if you need to track orders or customers, or as you grow, you can add the modules you need. One of our core modules in Adagio is the ledger, of course, to keep track of your accounting. It's a place where you can define your accounts the way that you want. You can also have lots of control over departmentalization if you've got different facets of your company that you need to keep separate. And when it comes time to designing financial statements, you can create them in any way that you want. There's a lot of flexibility. You don't just have to list your chart of accounts in account number sequential order. So there's lots of flexibility. And as you keep track of your accounting, you can have either a 12 period or a 13 fiscal period year, and also have a 14th period, which can be used optionally to store year-end adjustments. So you can keep all of your accounting separate to those adjustments that you do at the end of the year. Adagio has many controls for auditability and to make sure that you prevent mistakes. So you can ensure that you don't post to accounts you no longer use by marking them inactive, or make sure you don't post to periods that have been closed because you've done your monthly financial statements by closing those. And you can even, on an account-by-account basis, ensure that you're not posting to them from the wrong place, so that you've got a payables control account, you're not updating those from receivables or elsewhere. So Adagio Ledger is batch-based, so that you have an opportunity to take a look at the transactions and audit them and ensure that they're where they're going, where they need to be before you post and say, oops. And an active batch system and also an archive system, so you can have recurring journal entries on a monthly or regular basis. Data entry is fast. You can set up templates in order to hit the fields that you need to hit and bypass those that you don't need to retype over and over again. Posting journals for auditability to track your work. And there's security in regards to the batch systems so that you can ensure that a batch is ready to post before you accidentally post it. If you've made a mistake, you can recover that batch or even unpost it and remove it from your posted transactions to correct mistakes and then repost. And ensure that you've got a listing of all of your transactions before you print. You can also import from external programs if you have a specific industry standard program that you keep track of some accounting and you want to be able to bring it into Adagio. So you're not restricted to using Adagio programs. There might be some things that are particular to your industry. So let's just talk a little bit about the financial report. This is what we're going to be doing today. It's a full spreadsheet, just like Excel. It's got lots of the computational horsepower as in Excel. And if you're comfortable with Excel, as Alan has been teaching you over the series, then you'll be comfortable using the Adagio Financial Reporter. It's able to understand new accounts, so that if you are adding new accounts on a regular basis or new departments, and if you've set up your financial statements in a certain way, you don't even have to remember to add those to your statements. They'll be added automatically. You can drill down to details so that you can see not only the amounts that have been posted to a particular account in a month or a year, but you can actually see what those transaction details are, all the way to the balanced GL entry. You can also look at source documents, so that not only can you see the balanced journal entry, but you could actually see a scan perhaps, or an electronic PDF of the document based on what has been made up of that system. So hopefully that's whetting your appetite. What I'd like to do is just ask a quick poll, because I'm interested in people who are in the audience. And I'm just going to launch one of those blue screens. And just curious who in the audience today and what your experience with doing your financials in your organization are. Maybe this is something that you are not responsible for, or would like to get started, or you have some minor responsibility as far as printing or doing some changes, or you're responsible for creating your statements. So we're about 80%, so thank you very much for your presentation. We're almost at the 90% cutoff. We're getting closer, inching our way to the 90 mark. Okay, we're just about there. So maybe we're kind of stalled at 88, 89. Okay, we're just about there. So I think we'll call that the poll. So we'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing. We hit the 90%. That's fabulous. Just for an indication of who's here today, it looks like that over half of you are very capable of creating your financials from scratch. Is excellent. We're preaching to the converted. And many others are also responsible for printing, and hopefully something like this will give you confidence that you can do your own changes to your financials. So thank you very much. I'll just close that blue screen. All right, sorry, there you go. Perfect. So why don't we get in to see what kind of things you can do in the Adagio Financial Reporter. I'm just going to launch one of here. Just a very simple looking income statement. It looks a lot like Excel. It's got the column headers for the letters and the row numbers, just like in Excel. You can type in text and you can put in formulas. Some of the things you can do is that you can show a summary view of a financial statement and expand to show account details. And that rereads your chart of accounts. Not only can you just simply show a summary or expanded view of your financial statement, but you also have the capability of showing the statement without any of the 0 rows. So for example, we've got a row that doesn't have anything in it. So it's very simple. Just simply click a button to 0 suppress rows to allow you to hide those immediately or show them if desired. This happens to be for a consolidated company. But I can choose, if you are running a business where you have multiple departments, to untoggle a consolidated view to show a particular department within your organization. And you can create departments and choose a different one. Or perhaps you might show a whole range that you've set up. Or you can use wildcards if you code your departmentals in a certain way. Or you can have predefined lists of departments, so you can cherry pick in regards to which accounts that you show. Or you can set back to consolidated. And not only do you have the ability of changing your departments on the fly, but also the period that you're printing as of. Up in the toolbar, there's also a place where you can choose a different fiscal year. So I can back it up and show what the statement was as of last month. And all of the numbers will automatically calculate. I can go back to the beginning of the year, or even a different fiscal year, depending on what history you have. So there's capabilities of printing out and recalculating financial statements on the fly very easily without having to retype in all these values. The whole point of having a financial reporter connected to your accounting is so that the computer can do all that work for you. You are able to add new accounts on the fly as long as you've got your financial statement set up in a certain way. What we're going to do is we're just going to briefly shut down the financial reporter because I can't add new accounts or departments when the financial reporter is open. But we're going to add a new account, 4050, and so it'll be right here in between here. So I'm just going ahead and close this. And we'll go to the ledger. And we're just going to create a new account, 4050 for Department 100. Special revenue. It's an income statement account. It's in the revenue account for 4,499. Great. So we've added a new account. We're also going to add a new department, 125, just so we can see that show up in the list in the financial reporter. So edit departments, and we can actually copy an existing department and clone an existing. So Central USA, and we'll copy Department 100 and copy all the accounts at the same time. So we've added that. Now let's go back into our financial reporter. We can just load it from toolbar. And I'll load that same statement. Now when we collapse, we've got all of our revenue accounts, which includes that new account 4050, and expand. And now we have got our new special revenue, and I didn't even edit that. But you now have that new account automatically added to the financial statement. And if we go to our list of departments, now we've got the new department that we just copied just a moment before. Of course, it'll be all zeros right now. So it's possible to be on the fly, be able to add new accounts and add new departments, and then those will be automatically added to financial statements without you having to even think about it. If you want to change a financial statement, you can do very simple changes very easily. For example, we've got a column that represents last year's month, say month last year, and maybe we'd like to have it next to the current month. Well, it's a simple matter of highlighting the column and dragging it. You can see the red line where it's going to drop to, and then it drops in. Adding new columns is also very easy as well. Formulas refer to a code that represent a type of an amount. Current year net changes, current month net changes, the budget, the current balance, the balance as of the end of the last year. So there's lots of different formula codes. You can find those from View Account Data. So to create a new column, I could certainly do an insert and copy cells. There's also an ability in the financial reporter to highlight a column and duplicate it. So let's say that we wanted to have last year, year to date. I can duplicate a column and then put in a last year, year to date column, and then all those numbers will automatically calculate based on that. Pretty simple, we think. All right. So in order to add new columns, it's very simple, just to duplicate and then change the code number or the code value at the top in order to replicate that. So let me just check my column here, F and H, that's good. Okay. So we take a look at our financial statement. We'll expand. And we take a look at our January 2008 revenue. Oops, didn't mean to double click that quite yet. And we see that we've sold $10,000 worth of kayaks this month. That doesn't seem right. Well, we could go back into the accounting and print a detail listing to get all that information. Another thing you can do is you can double click, and then that $10,000 will be broken out into all of the different departments associated with that account if you use departments. So we see one particular location has been selling all the kayaks in January. Let's sure about that. We can double click. Now we can see the fiscal period postings for this particular account and department. We can double click on that to see all the details that have been posted into that account. So we can see that there's been 2 different invoices, and this one's certainly a lot larger than the others. We can double click on that. And now we've gotten down to the balance GL entry in order to be able to see something that you might notice that's standing out in blue is that there's a doc link column either on this particular grid, or if we back up, on the grid that shows the particular invoices into the account, department, and fiscal period. If you're integrated with an additional program in Adagio called Adagio Doc Store, you can scan or otherwise bring in transactions and link them in, so that when you click the View button, now you can actually see the document itself. You can see your customer invoices, you can see your vendor invoices, purchase orders, whatever, packing slips, whatever you might want to be able to see associated with the accounting. Something else that's also really cool that you're able to do is that you can export these details to Excel. Anywhere in Adagio you see this green X, you can see it on this drill down screen. I'll click that and it will launch Excel. I'll just bring it up. Those links that you saw within the drill down are also available in the Excel spreadsheet. So I'm able to click on the link and that will bring up in your PDF viewer the invoice that you were looking at before. Something else that's also pretty cool is that when you do this export from the drill down with all the details, something it does is it creates an Excel Direct folder that stores not only the spreadsheet that you created, but it also creates a subfolder of all of the PDFs that might be available in that range. So that there's a way that you can create a collection of all the PDFs that are associated with this account. You can do this collection and take this whole folder and zip it up and email it to a department manager if you wanted to identify PDFs and make any questions in regards to particular transactions that have been posted to your ledger. So I think that's pretty cool. So having seen that, I'm going to ask my second poll question. Oops. So many of you are, as you alluded to before, are responsible for financial statements in some way. What types of things do you use our financial statements for? And choose all that apply. So the numbers are going up, that's great. And we won't wait too much longer. We're over 80%, so you have a few more seconds left in order to get your last vote of the day in. All right, so we don't take too much time. So thank you very much. I think we're stalled at 87, so I'll give you the 5-second countdown. 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll close that. Thank you very much. So just as a show of who's doing what, there's the blue screen of results, and you use your financial statements for many different ways, and that's excellent. And I hope that that last one about being able to look up transaction details and source documents directly from the financial statement is something that could be pretty cool and pretty interesting. So I'll just close that. Thank you very much for that. So just in our last few moments before we wrap up my portion of the presentation, I'd like to allude that not only do you design statements, but of course you have to generate them. Of course, there's a printer button that you can generate a paper or you can print it to a PDF, but you like to work in Excel too. And not only can you send those transaction details to an Excel spreadsheet, But in the toolbar, there's also a place where you can use Excel Direct to send the financial statement itself to Excel. So I can click that and just, oops, there we go. And in just a moment, that will generate the Excel sheet with all the same formatting and the values in Excel, so that it's easy to distribute this in an Excel-based format. You can formula protect these exported spreadsheets so that you do not have the ability to edit these exported to Excel, but you have the capability of generating them for distribution this way. Now, of course, I could create one and then choose a different department and export, or print, and then choose another one and print, and then choose a different period and do a summary and print. But that could be tedious, and you want the financial reporter to do those for you. It's possible in the financial statements to be able to create what we call a statement group. And you can generate them, one or more. You name a group. Oops. And you can add all the different financial statements that you want to generate. So a cover sheet and an auditor's list, a balance sheet, an income, a cash flow, whatever particular statements you print on a weekly or monthly or an annual basis. Once you create those, I'll just show you what one looks like. So I can either add a new item to add a new financial statement to a group. Well, let's just edit and see what this looks like. So we'll just wait that to come up. So you have the ability of seeing a browse to look for your financial statement. You can pick and choose which of the departments that you want to print for. So it'll print one form consolidated, and then a second form for this department, and another one for this department. You can cherry pick all the ones that you want to print for. Choose the tabs you're going to print. And then toolbar options like we saw before, suppressing the zeros, expanding so you can see individual departments or accounts on each row. Include the year adjustments if there are any. And then when it comes time to generating those, I can go to File, Statement Group Print. And I happen to have quite a few in my company data, so I can pick the demonstration statement group, and I can export that to Excel. And I can choose the periods that I'm going to print for. And this will just take a few moments as it generates. So there's the cover sheet and the audit report. And it will generate this in Excel. So the balance sheet. And the income statement. You can see that this is taking all the work out of having to generate the financial reports for you. It was just a simple matter of creating the collection of statements that you like to have in a workbook, and it's generating all of those on separate tabs for you. As it goes through that process, it will generate for the different accounts and departments and whatever information that you would like. So I think just as you get the idea of what's happening here, I'm just going to pause this just so that we know that what the generation is going to be. So I'm just going to cancel that. Don't save. Okay. And very lastly, before I wrap up, one thing I forgot to mention is that when you expand your accounts to show your different accounts, you can do them in different ways. You can have them by account number, or if you'd like to see them one row per department, it's also possible to expand them by different departments. Or when you do your different account ranges, you can show one row per department rather than one row per account. And finally, it's possible to sort them so that they're sorted, say, alphabetically by account description rather than by the account number. So there's different ways that you can sort your expanded financial statement. So I think I showed everything I would like to, and I hope that that was interesting and encouraging for using your financial statements in wonderful purposes more than just your year-end statements. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Warren. Always exciting to see financial statements in action. I heard cheers across the country, not the least of which was mine. I'm always amazed at the power of what Adagio can do. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Alan, are you on the line? We can wrap up a little bit early today?
I certainly am.
I'm making you the
And I'm going to
presenter.
show my screen for my wrap up. So folks, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. As usual, when you exit from the webinar, you'll have a short 1-minute survey to do. I hope you will all do that because we use that survey to provide enhancements to our ongoing mini webinar series. So I look forward to seeing all of you again on June 6th. And thank you very much again. It's a wrap.